OneDrive is not as just as network drive. Why? It's going to the cloud and come back. It depends on your internet connection. Therefore, it's not a network drive. But OneDrive has some good things. If you are offline, you have the data still there. If you're prepared, well, sometimes it's only in the cloud and you have to click on it. And if you are not well prepared and you have no internet, you cannot get the data. So that's different. It's like if you have a VPN network, you have to be in a VPN tunnel. If you cannot establish it, you have no data. So it's suitable for all data types. You can have it. There are some limitations, but normally for all data types. And like Dropbox or Box or other cloud storage, it's different with OneDrive. So it's not the same. OneDrive is or provides us the offline capability, not only in Windows. That means you have all the others like smartphones, Apple, it's not a problem. You can have that. But we have to look what the difference is. Contains metadata like history functions. That comes from SharePoint, these metadata, and therefore OneDrive, yes, has metadata, and you have history of different things. That's different about the network drive. There you have no metadata inside the documents. And that's very important. OneDrive is the brand. So sometimes we talk about OneDrive, and if you are Microsoft, has to say OneDrive means OneDrive for Business. And if they're talking in private with the same guy, he says OneDrive Consumer or OneDrive for Business. But it's a brand. OneDrive is all. And it's different because you have a capability with normal OneDrive stuff for you. You take it with you during your whole life. That's OneDrive Consumer. 5 gigs for free. You can have it with each account. And then you have where you work a OneDrive for Business and SharePoint Libraries and so on and so on. So that's the brand. And OneDrive is a sync technology. That's the difference. The sync technology means it's sync between your machine and the cloud. And not only with this machine, whatever we see. That's this stuff. And OneDrive is, as I mentioned before, and/or OneDrive Personal and Drive for Business. So thinking about OneDrive, it's the story behind that. It's a basic for collaboration. In Microsoft terms, if you collaborate with Office files, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, the basic is OneDrive. So you have to store anyway, wherever, in OneDrive Personal or in OneDrive for Business. But for security reasons, it's meant that you are working with OneDrive for Business. There are much more details in there, just what you not have in OneDrive Personal. So we don't talk about OneDrive Personal right now, but only that's the old symbols we have. Right one is the white symbol is next generation sync client, but personal. After they have renamed it in the old days, we have another name. And you see the old Groove client, that was the beginning of sync technology. Came from Cambridge, the university in Boston, and MIT people established this Groove client. And this was Ray Orsey. And Ray Orsey joined Microsoft, and then all things comes on. Now we have it with the next generation sync client, the OneDrive.exe. But the logos you see, it's not the right one. You have a little blue and you have a dark blue. And the difference is not so seen in the notification area, but you cannot see it. It's dark blue or it's white blue. Therefore, Microsoft changed this stuff. They make it now this left and on the right. The Groove client you still need if you handle all the stuff with SharePoint server on premises before 2019. 2016, 2013, 2010, you still need the old Groove client. But anyway, that's the thing. A little bit about the architecture. The OneDrive.exe runs in a user context normally. Means there is available in 113 different languages. Groove, one language. No, they have more language, but you cannot have it on one machine more than one. So therefore, you have here more, means 100 different languages. And that's a cool thing. If you change your language, it changes it also with you. It's always there. It's always there in Windows 10 and Windows 11. It's there in the inside, but it's not running before you establish it and have your first connection. Then he looks, and that's the next thing, a self-update. He is looking in the cloud. Hey, is there a new version? Because your Windows 10 can be old from the first day. Has nothing to do. It looks for that. Call the OneDrive.exe updater. That's a 47 megabyte big file, now in 64-bit and in 32-bit. And then he holds the newest thing wherever you are provided. If you're in a company and there are 3 rings, then you got the productive ring or the deferred ring, the enterprise ring in the old days. So it's one engine, you have several instances. You can have more instances, not only to one company, you can have it up to 9. There is a limit, 9 and 1 personal account. So in 10. Yeah. And that's a very interesting thing. You have more than 4, but they have limited because there are other limitations, and I will talk about that also, why we do it in a new thing. Means also you have selective sync. Selective sync means, okay, you say, I don't want to have that. It's not there, but there is a bug, and Microsoft defines it. It's there, you have to, but it will not come. I will show it later on when we have time. The thing is, after 14 days, there are some new things. Microsoft controls SharePoint servers in the cloud. But this is on your machine. So they must have to implement a mechanism that you will have automatically the newest version. The insiders got the information each week, a new version. It comes Monday, and it means if you're in the same company, you're sitting on the other side of the desk, I have the new version, and you on the same program, same ring system, and you got it 3 days later. So that's a wave of rollout, although with this OneDrive client. Means in the old thing in enterprise, it will only 3 to 4 times a year. You can smooth this to 2 times because, hey, administrators don't want to have it automatically sometimes. So it syncs with Office 365 and SharePoint Server 2019 on-premise. That's the only version, and the next version we will follow up will also have this because it's implemented there. All other SharePoint servers need another client to sync. Okay, that's the architecture, and you see at the end we have it in blob storage. So all the data behind SharePoint with all the rights will be stored in Azure blob storage. Also for the OneDrive personal, that will also come there. Okay, there are some limits. And there is the big thing you have to look in your company. So you know we have up to 30 million documents in each library in SharePoint. But after 100,000 files, the performance decreases. And the next generation sync client on your machine has a limit about 300,000 files. Library is a SharePoint library. You have it where you have 2 creators or 1 creator and several members, marketing, finance. And there's a library for documents. I will show it later on. Yeah, it's not a problem. Yeah. Yes, in each library. But to sync, it's not. If you see the limit about all libraries, all your connections to different companies and your private, you have to count the files, not the size. You have to count. And if you have more than 300,000, then you will see several trouble on your machine because all have to be synced always. And therefore is a limit with 10 because otherwise Microsoft can open it, then you cannot work with your machine because he has all done the sync issues. Okay. So you see the file length can be up to 250 gigabytes, one file. So it's okay. File name, the limit is also now 400 characters, and that's a thing you have to know. The 300,000 is the marking we talk about today, why we need that. Synchronization, yeah. Yep. Yeah, it depends on the name of the company name is also in there, and you have to look for that. This collection here with the restrictions point to this direction, then you can read this article about that. So there are some other things on limits, you have to look for that. Hey, recap. Groove Sync Client with SharePoint before 2019, the next generation Sync Client with SharePoint, Office, and today document libraries with protected IAM, aMS sensitive labels. And now also with new encryption will also be available that you can have encrypted things together and co-author with them. That's the thing. Jeff Teeper, that's the CEO, not the CEO. It's the father of SharePoint. He has to say, okay, it's absolutely new. Microsoft is doing here a new standard. That was an announcement 1 week ago. Syncing always. The first we have to look what is syncing. Here you see the cloud with Exchange Online, SharePoint Online. We have some document libraries in there, and we have also with the document libraries some OneDrive for Business. That's 3 because that's a site collection. Each people in your company has a OneDrive for Business. Let's we talk about E3 as planned. And if you have 100 people, then you have 100 OneDrive for Business. If you have 50,000, you have 50,000 OneDrive for Business. Therefore, I take only 3. But although you have to see the sync can be done, not only, it will start in different things, not only with Windows, although from Outlook, although from Word, and any way you can serve. You have although the browser, that's your future or your view to the cloud, if you start something in the browser. And that's a different. Because in the browser, that's not a sync. You're only looking directly. You must have an internet. On the left side, you see all that is local. Therefore, it's a different. And that's the same as with iOS and Android. You can have all these stuff and Teams. There's nothing stored in Teams. Your chat messages are in Exchange. And all the files are in SharePoint Online or in OneDrive for Business. So there are several things we can talk about. It's a long story what we can connect with all this. That's not an easy part. You can talk about 2 hours about the different connection. I don't want to do it. I want to only say, hey, that's a lot of things. If you are here and Outlook on the web, you can have all these connections directly. Thinking the cloud is our system and not your client. The cloud is the winner. If you have first sync and sync into the cloud overrides all other rules. Therefore, you have to attention of that. So with OneDrive Personal, also what we can do, we can store OneDrive and store the data for offline capability here in Windows 10 or Windows 11. I have to update the slide deck too. And you can also have different document libraries. If you are a member, you can sync. That's the easiest part what we have to look. And a bit more, only to show you, there are some other things we can have. For example, we show that up to 9, that's your machine, and that's another client. If you have the possibility and you have access to that, you will still have it from another company if they go. We as consultants, sometimes we got a connection. We don't need the software. We have the software from our own or from our company. Then here that means that we have 2 different blue icons. That's not all. There's a little bit more that we can have to sync all the data. And that's B2B. B2B is another tenant where we have a trust, that's a short version, a trust with this company. They don't have to access to us. We have control for these people, and then they're writing in her SharePoint Online or in a different directory in a SharePoint library that is on our side. Only a small portion. So you can have that with different. Thinking about the COVID times, we have to have some blood or something, and to check that. So in the hospital, we have a labor and we can check that, but it was too much. Therefore, they have a connection to outside. And therefore, the thing has to be done. The blood or thing, what we have to test has to be physical to the thing. They can check it, but the result of all that can be synced automatically to our company. We have control about that, and they do not have to do anything else. The people have to access that. That's a B2B. B2B is a good thing. It takes a while to implement that. That's about 140 pages PDF document with all the stuff. And you have to know if you or the other partner has to be MFA, multi-factor authentication, it will not work. That's not good. Microsoft is working. That's the most interesting question what we have. So you can have more than one. Therefore, it's not an icon, it's direct in yours, but that's the king discipline, I say. So with PowerPoint, and that's also, PowerPoint can directly write to OneDrive or OneDrive for Business or document library. That means Office overrules that you have to sync in Windows 10 and then connect to the SharePoint library or to the cloud. It will done automatically, but he can also overrule that, and therefore it will be automatically in SharePoint and sync back to you. There's a different where you save your file. And therefore it's also important that you do not have Word in the old manner, because 2016 will work, but the new features you will have for co-authoring and stuff, it's always the best if you have the newest Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So some companies say, okay, we do it only the shift in 2 years, but there will have a different one, because there are some things that will be better. That means also some group policy will not work to exclude some files. You can have it, but not for Office, because they can directly write. Okay. Means we can do it from internal. This means other people can also give you access to them from external. You can sync them also on your machine. There are some possibilities you want to have, but the pain problem is still there. And here we have to look a little bit of iOS and Android. That's only a few mechanisms. You have an app and you have always internet with your drive. Except you are in Alaska or something where no internet is given. But normally, if you have access to your phone and can call, you also have access to them. But they will not sync the stuff here. It's only a few. You can edit a document, but it's not stored on your device. That's a different one. And that's not only here in iOS, it's also the same if we say, okay, we're going to Android. Means if you have an iPad is iOS, the same feature. You can store it then, one file or another file if you want to work with them. That's not an issue, but the syncing mechanism is different. It's a one-way sync. And in Teams, it's the same. In Teams, you have several things there that you can synchronize that. Yep. Sometimes the document library is involved. Sometimes you can OneDrive for Business, whatever you want. And there are some rules, although that also implements in Teams, because nothing is stored in Teams directly, with the exception of gifts or gimmicks or whatever they use. And remember, I said 300,000 files. For a bigger company, it can be a problem. So you have to look for that. And therefore, Microsoft add a new functionality. And Jeff Teeper spoke about add to OneDrive. And you do not find the function. So it's a philosophy that will do it a little bit more. Then the real name is not add shortcut to OneDrive. The real name is add shortcut to my files. So, you know, in Windows times, a shortcut can be renamed, but not the destination, what you have there. And that you have to remember. The destination you will not change. You can change this data. I will show you. Add shortcut to my files implements the functionality, and the counterpart is remove shortcut for my files. So we have to look for that. 300,000 is a magic number for all OneDrive for Business plus SharePoint Online plus OneDrive Personal on your devices. Other people will have in the same company other synchronization. Therefore, we have to look for the machine. The machine cannot exceed these numbers. So looking, the old way is you have a library, and this library has documents. That's the site, but we're only looking for the documents inside the site. And you have here the possibility sync or add shortcut to OneDrive. So this picture I have to change because add shortcut to OneDrive in Germany ist ein Shortcut to my files hinzufügen. It's such a length in the description. And therefore, they decided to take this long part. You see, the only 3 points. They accepted it and say from the beginning, and then you can have only symbols. That's a shorter one. Normally, if you are in the root section of the documents, you can have a sync. That can be automatically. If you are working in the marketing, you come to us, okay, you sign a contract, and then you come. And if you have your machine, you log in, and then it will automatically, the document library from marketing will be on your machine. So you can automate this. But it's all the things you have here. It's not only a small portion, but here you see add shortcut. And that's a different. Add shortcut, you see here, it's only 13,000 files. I do not have to do that. But if we take it a little bit with the sync button, if we do it a little bit other, we take only here, we have some years in another library. Yeah. And I say only this I want to have and want to work with. Not 2021, not 2019, whatever in the subdirectories are there. Then you can say add a shortcut to OneDrive. That's only 175 files here in this example, but that means add a shortcut. Press the button, and then it's go. For example, you have to see add shortcut to my file. That I'm user A, you have folder A1, A2, A3, whatever, and I want to share it with you in the same company. That's very important. Not with external, only internal. And it's a different add shortcut to my files from a personal OneDrive. Therefore, it's different. We talk about OneDrive for Business. I share a folder with another user. We have here user B. He has some folder B1, B2, whatever. And now he has a folder A2. Means if you press the button, sync that means it appends in your shared with me files. And also implement that at a shortcut in my files, a new symbol of OneDrive my files in the web, see the folders and files also in web, and see the folders and files in Windows File Explorer. But if we take it from a library, it's not a separate library, it's in your OneDrive for Business. Sometimes a little bit confusing. Now that's another function that's files on demand. Files on demand, I take it to you later instead. The shortcut is also, it syncs completely the stuff on your machine, even if it comes from her or from him. That's not the direction. Yeah? In the web browser, you see that. But in the Explorer, I show you later on, it's on the machine. And it's not on your machine if you have more than one machine. And you have a smartphone. On each of these devices, you will have the shortcut with the data. Exception here, because iOS will not store it on this device, but the shortcut is there with the data, you see it. Okay, we can have that. And again, a shortcut can be renamed. If you have it a rename in all of the folders you have to sync, and you make a rename, it will also rename in the cloud. And if other persons have this function as implemented, they will also have the rename, not with the shortcut. So there you can rename, it's only on your machine where the shortcut exists. The origin from where it comes from, has no change. But you can say it's from Gustavo or whatever you rename it. So that's not only if you remove it, and that's a big thing. If you have to remove a shortcut, the data is no longer available on your machine, and not on this machine, all others machine, including here, there is no data anymore. And that's a big advantage, because in the old days, the classic, you have to clean up personally if you release that. But we have to look for a shortcut to my files. It's also possible. We have here a document library, as I showed you before, with several folders, and I do not want to have it. And you are not on this document folder, on this site. You have no access, but I have access. I can say, okay, this folder tree 1, I want also on your machine. As a shortcut. That's possible. Internally. Not from external, as I mentioned before. Yeah. The same thing is we have to click share with me, add a shortcut to my files, and the remove function is also possible. Means you have a work for a different period of time. You do it with shortcuts. After that, you remove it and it's gone. And not the whole library. Remove only these portion of files. And that means we reduce the size that we come below 300,000. Different. Here's a small thing you have to see, clicking on it, add shortcut to my files, done. And then you have it and found it in the my files section. And he has a special symbol. You see the symbol here that is also available. That's only a small thing. We have to look for the next one. Looking for that. That's SharePoint Libraries. That's my OneDrive for Business. Oh, I have another OneDrive for Business, another company. So that we have to see what we will do and add shortcut to my files with mobile that you can see. That's a function. These pictures shows you that is add a shortcut. Looking for you that you'll see a little bit better on this small, that's a different, this small icon. And if you look at that and take a right function, you got here remove. Shortcut will remove, that's all. And the data here on the mobile, we have always no data there. So one thing you have to look, if you have a function, a small library, and on one of your devices in the classic sync, you cannot have it as a shortcut. It's only one way to sync. A small device, you say, okay, the whole library on this machine, it's okay. I have it on this machine, and I want to start here and now then sync here is not available. You do not have to do that. And then add a shortcut, then an error message occurred. Means, okay, first I have to release here the classic, then I can work, because it's on all machines. Then in this machine, I have then 2. Therefore, it's not available. Live demo. Short look for that. It's not an issue. Big look for that. And we don't need that. We need a version. So I am here, and that's a library I'll show you. That's business to business marketing, whatever we want to own. You see that, that's a library I have access. But I can also do it for a demo. Other people can do that for you and send it to you. Add a shortcut is available. If I have sync, all the things are here will be also in the classic version. Here I add a shortcut, and it adds a shortcut to my files. Means in the Explorer, we still have it. If you have a refresh, function F5. And we will have it, hopefully. Sometimes it takes a moment. And for me, it's very easy. I can tell you a little bit. Hopefully it will come also true. That means I always rename each and take an underscore before it. Why? only that I have to see. That's my normal stuff I have in my OneDrive for business of the company. And here you see it comes. It takes a moment. Now it's come with the completely story, and you have to click there. You found all these stuff. And here you see the status. I have the status in my OneDrive for business saying in the settings section. And look here in the settings, files on demand. That saves space. It will be synchronized, but without no content. Therefore, if you have set this, I sync it, but I have it only in the cloud. That's a different one. It has nothing to do with the shortcut. Here, 0. 0. 0. No, it's in NTFS in there. We can talk it later after the show. It takes 5 minutes. I have some slides, but there's nothing to do with them. It's a bit in the new technology file system, but you have to look what the data are in there. There is no content there. It's only the name of that stuff, modification date, and so on. Minimum, yeah. But this takes nothing from the content. The content is the big one. So that means we have it here, and I make a rename here because it's now there. And with Windows 11, we have to click twice, not only in OneDrive, we remove shortcut. Yes, it's okay if you work it back again, but I want to have more options. Sometimes you have to look for that and have a rename. That's our 3 clicks. But anyway, /documents, and then it's open. Means for me, it's only that I have it sort in my direction that I can say that's my shortcuts and that's the other one. What your name you want to have is, you can name it whatever you want. That's the library, B2B marketing, and that's the documents we want to have. We can change it all the way. And if we say, okay, if we want to do that, we have to do that a little bit special. I will have it here. And we'll do that from their side, that you see all the stuff. And I want to say, okay, I have to go to my OneDrive and look for the data and have it. That's wrong. I have to go to the business. And I have it now, the bar documents, and I click on it or tap on it. And want to have the shortcut remove. And now you see the second later, I have done it here because it was over. And you see it here in a few seconds that is gone. With the data, that's a big issue. Yeah, you don't have to delete the files manually. So that was our live demo. And therefore you have to say, okay, what will happen? Only for all people in our organization, no external. External is absolutely different. Only in your company. Any folder from OneDrive, any folder from any SharePoint document library, any folder. Only the folder and the subfolders. They are always included. You may get an error if you already sync data through shared with me. That is a different one. And for external users who share the folder with files with you, you still must use the synchronization method. Otherwise, it will not work. When choose which sync method? The answer is it depends. Why? We have for our automatic synchronization, it depends how much documents are in there. Because there is a group policy you can have, or alt synchronization, always the complete structure. If it's only 5,000 files, do it. If you only have to work with different files, take the other method. Then you will lose for the complete stuff. Therefore, it depends. Here again, we already have different ones. We take the sync method. That's number 1. And here we see the number 1. That's normally here in the library. And although you find all the libraries, what I have to sync. And the second one is it's in OneDrive, but it's on the same SharePoint libraries. And we have done it with the sync to library. We see it here with the same library what we have. It's that we have. So how much time I have? 5 seconds. More links. You want to read the stuff a little bit at home, try it at home, do that. And you got here, I have read several articles. Microsoft has not initiated something. There is nothing to read. How does it go? A little bit well. I have written on also the differences in synchronization. You have to see what you have heard, but sometimes it's better to read that. Or 5 tabs from classic sync to OneDrive, add to OneDrive. So trips, daily work. Sometimes people have to say, hey, I do not get the newest version for OneDrive. It's only a tip. You must be open at 44380, the OneDrive, SFX, aMS, and glive.com. Then you will get automatically. Sometimes the people do not want to do that. Therefore, you have to look. There is a list of Office 365 URLs for security people that have to say, hey, that's all right, we can do. And the other one is what always, sometimes the people say, oh, it's so slow. There is one, it's also on the open, it's required for Microsoft. They say it, but sometimes it will not set. Allow traffic to start.windows.com because they changed several things from an old one to a new one, for push to pull. And that is more speed for your machine. Some automatic updates I spoke about. There are 3 ring systems. You will find here the ring system also for the insiders. Microsoft do not publish it anymore. And sometimes, hey, I have a new version, but it's there. And sometimes if you want to go to the insider ring for the machine, you find also there. Summary, look for the technical community blog if you are interested in OneDrive. OneDrives are several things there. I have written many things in German and in English, not in France, sorry. But anyway, although you have to look for the community, if you go OneDrive and see on the filter, on the roadmap, what's on the roadmap. But be carefully with the dates. The dates never are correct, mostly. One more thing. I have written a community bot for OneDrive. You have all the questions and you want to ask. I have to sleep sometimes. So therefore you can do it, run it in one, it's in Teams available, and therefore you got all the answers. Some people, the MVPs, take it as a community and we have it on that. And sometimes I have to say, okay, it's in the Team store. Doesn't make any, we do not look for data. We have all the stuff. We don't need Exist Active Directory. That's a bot you can ask and you got an answer. 2 languages, no French this time. We are working on 50 more languages, but anyway. And if you do not have access in your teams, because your company, the administrator say no access and on 1100 bots and apps, they are there. Because yes, it's not a good idea, but you can have it. There is also a possibility, go to bit.ly OneDrive bot, and then you got a web version of that. So each person around the globe now has access to that, not only the team members. And then you see all these news, what we have. If you want to have, why is not here? I have it done in the wrong, but it's available. The slides will be available if you want to download it. Sorry, I forgot that. It's not good. So are there any questions? Not yet.